What did you think of the
How was it,
trials
Mack?
out there?
Very hard.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Well done. How was it?
Really hard.
Yeah. Well done.
Thank you.
You see, I haven't always been a runner.
This is Dewar. He's one of the people that lives in this house.
As a kid, I was pretty active.
Go on. The full sub.
I played quite a lot of sports, but running was something that never came naturally to me. I vividly remember as a 16-year-old my first 11 football coach telling me he wasn't going to play me because I was too unfit. But in August 2020, that all changed.
Go for a run.
So today I really want to take you through my running journey because I haven't always been a runner. So I'll take you back to 2019. It was July and I was going through some weird sort of mental health issues. I was struggling with my anxiety, and a lot of my anxiety was based around my health. And I'd had what I thought was chest pain, and so I went and saw my doctor. We ran some tests, everything was normal, and the next day or the day after I was still struggling with what I thought was some chest pain. So to sort of counteract my mindset, I decided that I would go on a run to sort of prove to myself that nothing was wrong with me. And basically that run is where my running journey started from. So for my birthday in August, I got a brand new pair of running shoes, and from that point onwards, I had started running. I was doing a couple runs a week. I started with 4 kilometers, then I moved up to 5 kilometers, and then 6 kilometers and 7 kilometers. And every day I was excited to run. I didn't know anything about running. I didn't know anything about pace zones or heart rate. I just went out there and ran as fast as I could, and I'd get home and I'd be absolutely gassed. But I just got hooked on the endorphins, how good you feel during a run. So I decided to sign up for my first half marathon. I found a training plan online. It was from Global Triathlon Network, and it was very basic. It was just a basic half marathon training plan. At this stage, I'd sort of worked myself up to running about 30 kilometers a week, but in a relatively short period of time. We're talking maybe 4 or 5 weeks of just starting to run, and I was already up to about 35 kilometers a week. I basically did what any new runner probably does. I got overexcited and I was doing too much volume too early on. My body wasn't used to the stimulus, and I ended up with like a flared Achilles. So I had to take about 3 or 4 weeks off running, which left me with about 4 weeks to train for the Queenstown half marathon. Keep in mind, at this stage, I still had no idea about pace zones or heart rate or anything technical about running. I was just going out and doing the runs based off the training plan. I wasn't practicing nutrition. I didn't know how to fuel properly for running. I was just going through the motions, having fun with it. I obviously got injured along the way, but we ended up at the Queenstown half marathon relatively fit-ish. Welcome. We are in Queenstown for the Queenstown half marathon. Number 405. 4 is one of my lucky numbers, and that's in there twice, so that's got to be a good omen of some sort. Nervous, but excited. So I'd sort of set my expectations relatively low for this half marathon. It was obviously my first one. It was the first time running the half marathon distance, so I said to myself, if I run anything under 2 hours, I will be super stoked with that. I remember on the morning of, I had maybe peanut butter on toast or peanut butter on a bagel or something like that. So I had a little bit of an idea about nutrition. My mum had given me some jelly beans. I think I had a few gels, and we went to the starting line just ready to run with sort of no expectations. I was running about that 5:40 per kilometer pace for the first 4 or 5 kilometers. Realized I was feeling pretty good, so decided to push it a little bit, and I ended up running 1 hour and 54 minutes. So that was sort of my first taste of running a race, what it feels like to kind of train for something like that. And I remember just finishing and being absolutely exhausted, but also being so overwhelmed, so excited about what could be next. And so after that race, I decided that I would train for my first full marathon. So it's officially day one of marathon training. First run is a 4K or 20 minute run at a 5:46 pace. The half marathon was in November. The marathon I signed up for was the Hawke's Bay Marathon, which was going to be run in May of the following year. So we ripped into a brand new marathon block, the 16-week block. I was using the Nike marathon training plan, and I was ready to go. But again, I still was lacking so much knowledge about running. At this stage, I had a Garmin Forerunner 245, the watch I still have now, actually. And I was using that to obviously track all of my runs, but I didn't know anything about, you know, training in zone 2 heart rate, or finding my zones, or heart rate training, or what is an easy run, what is a tempo run. I was still sort of just going out there and winging it. It's day 4 of marathon training. I'm going for a 35-minute recovery run at a 5:46 pace. I think with my sort of lack of knowledge, I was running those easy runs too fast. I just became a little bit burnt out, a little bit disinterested in marathon training, and the block itself was pretty horrendous in terms of my ability to stick to the training plan and hit the times, the paces, and the distances that I need to get myself ready to run a full marathon. For context, my longest run of this entire block, I think, was 26 kilometers. I remember finishing that run being like, oh, I've only got to run another like 16 more Ks, but little did I know that running 16 more Ks is pretty hard. So heading into this race, again, I was planning to run sub 4 hours, which was that 5:40 pace. We go out for the first 5K. I'm holding that 5:40 pace, feeling relatively good. But at this point, that Hawke's Bay sun is just pumping down on us. It's about 8 a.m. It's already 18 degrees. Look at my watch, heart rate's 185. And at that point, I am just like, okay, we are going to grind our way through this thing. We're going to get it done. It's not going to be at the time that I wanted to, but we're just going to get over the finish line. After that 5K point, when I realized I wasn't going to run under 4 hours, was you're going to run this thing, but you're not going to stop running. And I didn't. The last 3 or 4 Ks will run at like a 7:30 per kilometer pace, literally just trying to hold off cramp. And there's some photos of me at the finish line where I look like death. I look terrible. And I ended up finishing in 4 hours and 29 minutes. So funnily enough, after what was an absolute shit show of the Hawke's Bay Marathon, I actually ended up taking 3 months off running completely. I think I ran about 8 kilometers on the treadmill in total during that time, from May until August. So August of 2021 rolls around, 3 months since our first marathon, and in the days prior, there's news that New Zealand is most likely going into another 4-week lockdown. So I actually jumped online, bought myself a new pair of running shoes, and August 2021 is when I really started running properly. It was also at this time that I started to learn a lot more about running, mainly on YouTube through people like Nick Bear. And this is sort of when things started to click for me. I started to understand heart rate zones. I started to understand running in zone 2. I started to understand running easy, so when you have harder workouts, you can get those done. I started to understand that 80-20 principle. And basically from August until the new year, I was probably running about 30 or 40 kilometers a week, just getting fit. I didn't really have any plans to do anything. I just wanted to learn more, run more, and build up like a really good base level of fitness. And so at the start of 2022, I decided I was going to sign up for the Christchurch half marathon, where I would attempt to run under 140 for the half marathon. And this is also when I started to document my journey on TikTok. So for this half marathon block, I decided I was going to use one of the training plans on the Hal Higdon app. I think I was using the intermediate half marathon training plan, and that maxed me out at about 50 kilometers a week. Unfortunately, during this period, about 1 month out from the half marathon, after completing probably about 10 weeks of training, the half marathon got cancelled, and I ended up actually having to have surgery in May anyway. So I actually had to take 12 weeks off of running altogether. And the idea of basically having to start from zero was quite intimidating. But luckily, from all of my past failures, all my past learnings, I decided to take all of that and apply it to basically chapter 2 of my running journey, which was effectively starting from zero. I had lost all of my fitness, I had lost all of my strength, and what I decided to do was just take it super easy for the first 12 weeks and just slowly build back into things so I wouldn't run into any issues that I had previously. So the biggest thing for me moving forward was managing training load, making sure to not do too much too early. And basically during this period, I would increase my load each week by about 10%. And during this period, we increased our training load to about 30 to 35 kilometers per week. And we were ready to tackle our next challenge, which was the Auckland Half Marathon. The same as earlier in the year, I decided to use the intermediate half marathon training plan from Hal Higdon for this block, which again capped me out at about 50 kilometers per week. But this time around, I was much more prepared for what was coming my way. I knew how to run my runs easy. I knew how to recover properly. I knew about nutrition. There was just a lot more things on my side going into this prep, which helped me get through it in one piece. So we went out there in October of 2022. We ran a half marathon PB of 1:39.09. So we'd come a decent way in those 2 years. We'd gone from not running at all to running a 1:39.09 half marathon, with periods of not running because I didn't want to run and periods of not running because I had an injury. And so after that race, we were well and truly ready to tackle the full marathon again and really get some revenge on what happened in Hawke's Bay. So in December of 2022, I started working with Jeff Cunningham, which if you have followed Nick Bear before, Nick Bear's running coach. So I started working with him in December of 2022 with the goal of running 3:20 at the Christchurch Half Marathon in April of 2023. This block was super successful. We basically started in the middle of December and went all the way through until April. And I think I peaked at about 80 kilometers per week as my highest mileage week. And we had lots of really good long runs in there with marathon pace efforts. We were slowly building on our easy runs week on week. And during the whole block, I think I missed one run total. And so when we actually showed up to the Christchurch Marathon in April 2023, I honestly believed that I was going to run sub 3:20. And so on race day, we were obviously ready to roll, had the brand new Alpha Flies on feet. And the way that the Christchurch Marathon course is set up is it's now 4 times 10.5K loops. And so there's a certain area of the course where your friends and family can sort of bounce around in a triangle and see you 3 or 4 times per loop, which is super good for morale. But the whole running in 4 loops thing is not that ideal for like an overall race. And so anyway, we the half marathon in 1:40.26. We're a little bit behind pace, but we're feeling good. And I remember early on saying to myself that what feels good now is not going to feel good later. Mentally, I was in a really good state to run this race as best as I possibly could. But unfortunately, we hit the dreaded wall at about the 35K mark, and the last 7K were a real slog. And we came across the finish line that day in 3 hours and 28 minutes. But in the grand scheme of things, I was so happy with that result. When you look at it big picture, right? I had come from running a 4:29 marathon, not really knowing anything, going through a really average training block, to then shaving over 1 hour off my marathon time and running a pretty respectable time of 3 hours and 28 minutes in my second marathon. And after Christchurch, we went into a bit of a maintenance phase. We were running about 40 to 50 kilometers per week We actually went away on a big family holiday in May. So we did some running in Hawaii. We did some running in Memphis. We did some running in Nashville, Tennessee, where I actually ran a half marathon just around downtown Nashville. And we also did some running in New York City. We went to the Minted New York Run Club and caught up with Marcus and Sean. And it was during that time in New York, I made a TikTok video called A Love Letter to Running. And basically it was a piece around what running had done for me, not only physically, but mentally, how it was such an important part of my life. And it had sort of shaped the kind of last 2 to 3 years of my life and the trajectory of where I was going. And so funnily enough, this piece, which I made while we were in New York, it was on the same day that New York had the worst air pollution in the world from the Canadian wildfires. And so Sam and I decided that there's no point in going outside. It's probably a little bit risky. The whole of New York City skyline is just completely yellow. We sat inside all day. I sat down for 9 hours, went through all of my footage, and made this love letter to running video. Fast forward about 2 months, and I had an email in my inbox from the team from New Balance New Zealand who wanted to jump on a call with me and sort of talk about what I had planned for the rest of the year. And so long story short, they said to me that they had seen the video that I made about why I love running and what running has done for me, and they wanted to send me to New York to run the New York City Marathon. I sort of share that anecdote because it was quite a full circle moment for me. Someone who absolutely loves New York City, and if I could, I would live there in a heartbeat because that place is electric and has this feeling that no other city has in the world. And I had made that video in New York City about running, another passionate thing that I love. It had been seen by this massive running company, and they wanted to send me back to New York City that same year that I had already been there to run literally the world's biggest marathon. They told me we had about 7 weeks to train for it. And I just started working with my new coach. His name's Andy Good. He's based in Christchurch. He's amazing. So for the next 7 weeks, it was how can we get as fit as possible in such a short period of time, do enough stimulus to get your body ready to run that distance, but not do too much that you show up fatigued or you end up injured or something along those lines. And it was really about striking this balance of getting in good volume without doing too much or without overdoing it. But race day rolls around, and so my wave got called, made my way to the corral. They played the US national anthem, the cannon went off, and then they played Frank Sinatra's New York, New York, and we started running, in my case, under the Verrazano Bridge. So we run the first half just over 1 hour and 45 minutes, right on pace, where we need to be. And I'm feeling relatively good at this stage. Where it really started to fall to pieces was when we crossed the Queensborough Bridge, and then we start to make the run up 5th Ave towards Central Park. And that run up 5th Ave is where things started to slowly slip away from me. And so yeah, with the last like 200 meters to go, I saw my old man. He had the New Zealand flag. He held it up. I tried to hit the accelerator, and then both my calves cramped up. And we finished in 3 hours and 39 minutes. Oh, bro, there's like, I may as well retire from running marathons at this point, you know what I mean? There's like, I don't think there's anything in the world that's going to compare to this. So the New York City Marathon is one to remember for sure. And although we didn't hit what I will call our A goal of 3:30, we still managed to fit in that window of 3:30 to 3:45. And that sort of leads us to where we are now, which is 3 months post New York City. We already have about 500 kilometers run this year so far. And yeah, now we're in this phase of obviously building towards the Christchurch Marathon, where we will try and run sub 3:15, but also taking all of that experience from our past races, our past failures, whatever you want to call it, and applying it to that block. And so although last week was not the greatest week of training, you know, Monday is a fresh start, and so far this week we're feeling relatively good. We're feeling better than what we were last week. and you're just sort of excited to wake up every single day and push your body and then recover and do it all again the next day, in hopes that all of the work that you do is going to pay off when it comes to race day. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, running is the greatest form of delayed gratification, because I could put in all this work, do everything that I'm doing right now, and still show up on the 21st of April and not hit my time goal. So on the agenda next is we've actually got a 45-minute run to tick off today to finish up the working week. Tomorrow we have about an hour and 20 minutes, 60 minutes easy, and then we go into some 1-minute pickups, and then on Sunday we have 2 hours and 15 minutes to wrap up the week.
G'day, it's Saturday. We're just out here. We've got about 80 minutes, 60 minutes easy, and then we go into 6 times, sort of 1-minute repeats we call it. Basically just like extended strides. Watched the F1 this morning, qualifying. Verstappen took out pole again. Could potentially be another whitewash of a season, so we'll see how tomorrow goes. I'm about to work through these 1 minutes now. It's 1 hour, 22 minutes, 34 seconds, 14.72 kilometers. Average pace, 5:37.
Yo, go snap, rock collective.
So I'm doing a bit of a wardrobe clear out at the moment, and I have these boxes sitting above my wardrobe. I thought I'd take you through some of my old shoes and what I use them for. Endorphin Elite. Oscar Baines gave me these. He's like one of the fastest runners in New Zealand, so keep those. Alpha Fly 2 ran the Christchurch Marathon and Marathon PB in these. I'm gonna sell these. The Fly 1. This is the first pair of carbon plated shoes I ever bought. And I ran the Auckland half marathon in these and also ran a PB. But I'm gonna sell those as well. Saucony Endorphin Elite 2. Probably one of my favorite shoes of the time. These have seen better days. Those can be donated. It is Sunday. Today we have a 2 hour and 15 minute long run, which I typically do my long runs on Saturdays, but this week's training was based around me running that half marathon last weekend, so things have changed around slightly. It's currently 5:22 a.m. I'm on a pretty tight schedule this morning because I'm trying to get in the majority of my kilometers before run club this morning. So I've already had 2 pieces of sourdough for breakfast. Just whipped up some electrolytes before to sip on while getting ready. And today I'm going to try something different. I've got a new handheld water bottle from Nathan. It's 350 mils, and I'm going to put half of a Morton 320 drink mix in there. So I'll use probably a couple gels on the run, and then this Morton 320 drink mix, which will be 40 grams of carbs. Actually been waiting on a big order from BPN, which I made a couple of weeks ago, and that has like Go On More Sport, electrolytes, the Go Gels, the Go Bars. I've been waiting on that to come in, so I'm a little depleted on the old endurance product front, but this morning we're making it work. Like I'm using some electrolytes that I found at the supermarket for like $4 from Vitasport or something. Hopefully they don't ruin my gut. We're out here. We're just in the middle of town basically. We're gonna go run some laps around Hagley Park. So to start this morning, We're going to do an hour first, and then we're going to link up with Chad and Stephen. We're going to get in some more kilometres with them, and then we're actually going to go and do Run Club as well. So total 2 hours and 15 minutes today to wrap up the week. Got Ben behind the camera. Should be good. So let's do a bit of a recap on the week that just was. So starting with Monday, which was actually a rest day. Tuesday, 6.82k, 5:59 average pace. Wednesday, 10.11 kilometers at a 6:01 average pace. Thursday morning, we trained legs in the gym. Friday, we had 50 minutes easy, which worked out to be 9.13 kilometers at a 5:39 average pace. So definitely felt better by Friday and picked up the pace. Average heart rate 137, so still staying well and truly in zone 2. Then on Saturday, we had a bit of a session. I'll call it a bit of a session. We left it a little bit late, as you would have seen. We went out, it was relatively hot, so it was a total of 14.71 kilometers, 5:37 average pace, moving time an hour and 22 minutes. And then we finished up Sunday with our long run. I can't remember the last time I did a Sunday long run ever since I started working with Jeff Cunningham. December 2022, I've been doing my long run on a Saturday. I now work with a different coach, but he still does his long runs on a Saturday as well. So it was 2 hours and 15 minutes total, 22.88 kilometers at a 5:54 average pace. So that is the week wrapped up. A total of 63.66 kilometers and time on feet 6 hours 10 minutes. So nice to bank a solid week of training. To be honest, the next 3 weeks are building weeks and really important. So making sure to be well rested, well fueled, and ready to go to take on the week ahead. Thank you for the support on the series so far. I'll see you guys in the next video.